Marcus Ellison was 39 years old, and the night his wife of 7 years told him he would never find better, he was standing in his own kitchen holding a dish towel, still wearing the work boots he hadn't bothered to remove. He drove a 10-year-old pickup truck with a cracked dashboard mount for the GPS and a dent in the passenger door he had never gotten around to fixing. He took his lunch to work in the same canvas bag he had owned since his early 30s. Her friends called him Quiet Marcus, said it with a particular tone, and she had never once corrected them. Vanessa believed she understood exactly what she had in him: a reliable man with a modest salary, a joint account with predictable deposits, and no particular ambition to change either fact. She said the words without raising her voice. "You'll never find better than me, Marcus." She said it the way someone reads a weather forecast, certain, unbothered, already thinking about something else. What she did not know, what she had never once thought to investigate, was that the modest salary was a performance. The pickup truck was a choice, and the name on the holding company that owned 4 commercial properties in Charlotte, 2 in Raleigh, and 1 in Atlanta, was the same name on the lease she was standing in. $2.3 million in pre-marital assets, structured and protected before she ever learned his last name. 3 months after those words were spoken, Marcus Ellison walked into a mediation hearing with a woman named Renee, who had known about every single dollar from the moment she asked. Vanessa arrived expecting to divide a working man's modest life. What she found instead was the full architecture of a man she had never once tried to understand. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from, and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The morning Marcus left for the job site on Tryon Street, the October light came in low and gold through the kitchen window he had replaced himself. Triple pane, sealed tight. The caulkwork as clean as anything his crew had produced all season. He stood at the counter and drank his coffee black, both hands wrapped around the mug the way he had since he was 19, and first learning to look composed in rooms where he felt anything but. He was composed now. The old habits were just good company. The house was a craftsman bungalow in the Noda neighborhood of Charlotte, a stretch of the city that had changed 5 times in the last decade, while the people who had built it looked on with a mixture of pride and grief. His grandmother had bought her first home 2 streets over in 1971, and Marcus had watched her tend it for 3 decades before he was old enough to tend his own. He had bought this bungalow when it was a gutted shell, renovated it over 18 months of weekends and late evenings, laid the tile in the master bath himself, stripped and refinished the original hardwood floors board by board, and built the cedar deck in the back from pressure-treated lumber he had chosen and sealed with his own hands. He moved Vanessa into it as a wedding gift. She had cried when she walked through the door and saw what it had become. He thought about that sometimes. His grandfather, a man who left Greenville, South Carolina with $40, a set of hand tools, and a very specific kind of patience, had taught him the work. He had been gone 11 years now. Marcus still heard him most mornings, usually in the form of the one phrase the old man said so often it had become indistinguishable from the man himself. A man who can build can never truly be left with nothing. Vanessa came downstairs at 8:15 in a silk robe Marcus did not recognize, her phone already in her hand, the screen tilted toward her chest in that quiet, particular way she had developed sometime around late spring. She kissed his cheek. The kiss was precise, the way a signature becomes precise when you have signed a document enough times that the meaning has gone out of it. "Working late tonight?" she asked. "Probably," he said. She opened the refrigerator and stood with her back to him. She did not ask about the Tryon Street project, which phase it was in, which subcontractor had been slow to deliver, what the week looked like. She used to ask. That had been one of the first things he loved about her. The quality of her attention, the way she listened to his answers as if structural engineering were a language worth learning. The questions had stopped sometime around February, so gradually that he had almost convinced himself he was imagining it. He was not. He logged the absence the way he logged all deviations from what something should be, without reaction, without conclusion, just documentation. His other phone, the one registered to Ellison Holdings LLC, secured in his interior jacket pocket where it had always been, unknown to her, vibrated twice. He left it there. He had met Vanessa 8 years ago at a fundraiser for a youth construction trades program he had quietly funded since its founding year. She had been wearing a green wrap dress and asking the program director careful questions about long-term community impact. He had watched her for 20 minutes before he introduced himself. She shook his hand like a peer, none of the softness people sometimes used with him, as if they had already assessed what he was before he spoke. He had valued that handshake more than he ever found the words to say. He had spent the last 2 years trying to reconcile the woman from that fundraiser with the woman who now kissed his cheek like she was clocking in. He was still rinsing his mug when his main phone buzzed on the counter. Theodore, his accountant. The man who had managed Marcus's personal portfolio for 6 years and knew every number in it. The text read, "Transfer request came through again. Same routing. Different account number. 3rd attempt this month. You should call me before you leave." Marcus dried the mug, hung the towel on the oven handle where it always went. He picked up his jacket. He drove. Theodore picked up on the second ring. Marcus listened from the cab of the truck, engine idling, not yet out of the block. Theodore walked him through it without editorializing. Over the past 4 months, someone had been probing the joint household account, not drawing heavily from it, but mapping it. Incremental balance inquiries. A failed attempt to add an external routing number that the bank's security system had flagged and quietly resolved. Then, in the last 3 weeks, 2 small transfers, $800 and then $1,100. Both outbound, both to an account number Theodore had run and could not trace to anything connected to Vanessa's known finances. "This isn't someone confused," Theodore said. "Someone is learning the system before they move." Marcus told him to document every transaction with timestamps and lock the account against further external additions until he said otherwise. He thanked him. He ended the call. He sat in the truck for the length of one long breath. His hands did not shake. He was not surprised. He had been watching the small variations accumulate the same way he watched a structure during a load inspection, noting each stress point individually, knowing that failure was never a single event but a long conversation between pressure and time, and that it always announced itself if you knew how to read it. He drove to the office and went to his private workstation and downloaded the last 10 months of joint account statements to an encrypted personal folder. He built a spreadsheet. He cross-referenced each date against what Vanessa had told him she was doing that day, against her Venmo activity, still linked to the joint debit card, and against her location history, which she had disabled 8 weeks prior. That alone was a data point. On the date of the first transfer, she had told him she was with her friend Alexis getting spa treatments. The Venmo confirmed the spa charge. The bank statement also confirmed a $1,400 ATM withdrawal from a machine 3 miles from the spa same afternoon. Cash. She had not mentioned it. He noted it. His face remained perfectly calm throughout. He went back further. 7 months prior, the statement showed a $350 charge to a firm he did not recognize. He searched the name. Family Law. A consultation fee. He opened a new folder on his desktop. He named it V. He continued backward through 14 months of statements, The pattern was there the entire way. Small, varied, never enough to interrupt the normal rhythm of a shared account. $400 here, $900 there. A $250 recurring charge that hid easily among subscription payments. 31 individual transactions. He cataloged every one with dates, amounts, and the corresponding statement page attached. Total over 14 months, $18,600. He moved with the same deliberate calm that had defined all of his work for as long as he could remember. It was not coldness. It was not detachment. It was the method. The way his grandfather had taught him to build things intended to hold. The same way he himself ran a structural inspection. Start at the beginning. Don't skip steps. Document what you find. He found the search history next. The shared laptop had been cleared, but the device synced to a cloud backup Marcus administered. The log was intact. North Carolina Equitable Distribution Law. How are assets valued in a divorce in NC? What counts as marital property in North Carolina? She had run those searches 11 times across 10 weeks. He printed the log. He added it to the folder. She had no idea, not once in 7 years, that she had never known the full shape of the man she married. She had known the work boots and the pickup truck and the joint account with its predictable deposits. She had never asked about the quarterly reports Theodore sent him. She had never asked about the early years, the logistics management work, the careful decade of investment before they ever met. She had been hunting for a modest man's savings. She had never looked for the architect behind them. He picked up his phone and made one call. "Patricia," he said when she answered. "It's Marcus." "Ellison, I need to come in this week. I'll clear my afternoon tomorrow," she said, without hesitation. Patricia Wentworth had practiced family law in Charlotte for 23 years. She was 60, meticulous, and possessed the particular stillness of a woman who had sat across from every variety of deception and had long since stopped being impressed by any of them. Her office on South Tryon smelled like cedar and old paper. Marcus had retained her 3 years prior, during the preparation of his estate documents, as a contingency he had sincerely hoped would remain unused. He set the V folder on her desk. She reviewed it without rushing. No editorial sounds. No expressions of alarm. When she finished, she closed the folder, set her reading glasses on top of it, and looked at him. "The $18,600 is recoverable as dissipation of marital assets," she said. "The Ellison Holdings portfolio, given your premarital registration and the founding documentation, is fully protected." "No commingling occurred?" "None," he said. "Theodore and I structured everything cleanly from the first year. The holding company predates the marriage by 4 years. Every asset in it was acquired before the date of our wedding. Then she will leave this marriage with the equity from the joint household account and nothing more." She paused. "That family law consultation was 7 months ago, Marcus. My recommendation is that we file first, on our terms, on our timeline, document the dissipation pattern, and move toward mediation without waiting for her to initiate." He agreed. She slid a notepad across the desk and wrote a number on it with a clean, deliberate hand. She pushed it toward him. "This is what the portfolio appraises at with current commercial market valuations across all 7 properties." He looked at the number. She permitted herself a brief, measured smile. "She is going to be surprised." "That's the intention," he said. 3 days passed. On a Thursday evening, Marcus drove out to Concord to see his Aunt Clarice. She was 74, still sharp-eyed. Still the kind of woman who noticed things long before she decided whether to say them. She had known Marcus since the day he came home from the hospital and had known every woman he had ever brought to a family dinner. He told her what he had found. She sat with it. Her tea cooled beside her. Then she said, "Alexis called me last spring." She was worried. She said she had seen Vanessa with a man she didn't recognize at a restaurant in Dilworth. The two of them close in a way that didn't read as accidental. She didn't know what it meant. She wanted me to know. She paused. "I didn't tell you because I wasn't certain. I kept hoping I was reading it wrong." "You weren't," Marcus said. "No." She reached across and set her hand over his. "You built something real, Marcus. The fact that she couldn't see it was never your fault. It was always her limitation." She poured him more tea without asking. "Your grandfather used to say, a man who pours his work into someone who doesn't value it, it is pouring concrete into sand. He never once let a bad foundation be the reason he stopped building." Marcus repeated it quietly, to himself. He kept it. He stayed an hour. He drove back to Charlotte in the dark. The name Alexis gave him, carefully, apologetically, during a 10-minute call the following afternoon, was one Derek Sims, mortgage broker. Drove a leased Audi. Made the kind of first impression that required ongoing financial maintenance to sustain. Theodore made quiet calls to people who knew how to run a background the right way. What came back was thorough. Derek Sims had filed for Chapter 7 personal bankruptcy 23 months prior. He carried $72,000 in outstanding unsecured debt across 4 accounts. His mortgage brokerage license had been flagged by the North Carolina Commissioner of Banks 18 months ago following a client complaint citing fraudulent fee disclosures, resolved on a procedural technicality but documented in the public record and flagged for monitoring. He was not a prosperous man performing modesty. He was a heavily leveraged man performing prosperity, and the performance was costing him more each month than it returned. Marcus added the findings to the V folder, not out of malice, out of completion. Preparation was the work, and the work was nearly done. Real power operated in quiet rooms. All the work in all those rooms was now finished. On Friday evening, Marcus came home at his regular hour. He set his work boots by the door. He changed out of his work clothes. He came downstairs to the kitchen where Vanessa was finishing dinner, pork chops in the cast iron, rosemary and garlic filling the first floor with warmth. She only made this meal when she was feeling warm toward him, or needed to appear to be. He sat down. He ate. He told her the Tryon Street project was coming in 4 days ahead of schedule. She asked if that meant a bonus. She smiled when she asked it. "Something like that," he said. He helped with the dishes. He folded the towel and hung it back on the oven handle exactly where it belonged. He said goodnight at his regular hour and went upstairs. From his home office, he opened his laptop and verified that every document in the V folder had transmitted successfully to Patricia's secure server. It had. Some things he had learned, you did not say. You just confirmed. The mediation conference was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at the offices of Vanessa's family law attorney, a glass and steel building in uptown Charlotte, where the lobby smelled like fresh paint and professional neutrality. Marcus arrived 20 minutes early. He wore the dark gray suit he kept for closings and carried the flat leather portfolio his grandfather had pressed into his hands at his college graduation, worn at the corners now, oiled every year since. Patricia sat to his left. Theodore sat at the far end of the table. Hargrove, the commercial real estate attorney who handled the Ellison Holdings transactions, sat beside Theodore. And to Marcus's right, composed and unhurried, a glass of water set neatly before her, sat a woman named Renee Caldwell. He had met her 2 years earlier at a commercial real estate conference in Raleigh. She was a corporate finance attorney, precise and patient, and she had asked him questions about pre-marital asset structure that told him immediately she understood the substance behind the work. They had met for coffee once, then twice, and on the third occasion she had asked him, simply and without the scaffolding of performance, what he actually wanted his life to look like. He had told her the truth. She had listened the way very few people in his life had ever listened, as if the answer mattered to her not for what it could offer, but because it told her who he was. He had called her the night he built the folder. She had come without conditions. She was here now, familiar with every number on every document about to be placed on the table. Vanessa arrived at 9:15 with her attorney. She was composed. She looked at the room, the length of the conference table, the number of people, the leather portfolio, and paused for exactly one beat before she recovered and took her seat. She did not look at Renee for more than a second. Her attorney opened with a proposed settlement framework. The house equity split evenly. Joint marital assets divided equally. The framing assumed a modest estate. She had been working with limited information, and her client had never thought to correct her. Patricia waited until the proposal was finished. Then she opened her portfolio. The first document crossed the table. Certified appraisal of the commercial real estate portfolio held by Ellison Holdings, LLC, conducted 8 days ago. 4 Charlotte properties, 2 Raleigh, 1 Atlanta. Combined current market value $2.3 million. Premarital assets in their entirety, continuously registered and title documented from 4 years prior to the date of marriage. Vanessa's attorney read the appraisal carefully. Her expression remained professional. Vanessa's did not. The second document, itemized accounting of $18,600 in outbound transfers from the joint marital account over a 14-month span, with corresponding bank statements attached. Patricia set it down without hurry. Documented dissipation of marital assets. The third, the family law consultation receipt. 7 months old. Hargrove presented the corporate structure of Ellison Holdings in the same register he used for investment briefings. Factual, complete, unhurried, the founding date. The premarital registration. The complete legal insulation of the portfolio from anything touched by the marriage. The clean paper trail stretching back 9 years. Vanessa was very still. "I didn't know about any of this," she said finally. The words came out shaped like the beginning of an argument she had not yet fully constructed. "I know," Marcus said. Those 2 words closed a door she had not seen coming. She tried a different one. "Marcus, I think we should talk, just us, privately. I think things went further than either of us intended. I think if we step back, you told me I would never find better." He did not raise his voice. He never raised his voice. He said the words the way he stated specifications on a job site. Level, deliberate, delivered to a room full of people who would carry them out. "You were wrong, and I think somewhere, you already know it, you just didn't know how wrong until this morning." He stood. He buttoned his jacket. He looked at his wife, his soon-to-be former wife, without bitterness, without triumph, with the same clear, settled expression he had worn since the morning he built the folder and understood exactly what he was working with. "Patricia has everything you need," he said. "I wish you well." He picked up the leather portfolio. He walked out of the conference room without looking back, and Renee fell into step beside him in the hallway, and the morning light was full and clean through the east-facing windows, and neither of them said anything at all while they waited for the elevator to arrive. The doors opened. They stepped in. He had built everything worth keeping. 4 months had passed like water over good stone when Marcus stood on the cedar deck behind the Noda bungalow and watched the evening come down slow over the tree line. He had refinished the deck himself in the weeks following the mediation, stripped the old stain, sanded the grain smooth, treated the boards with a red-brown oil his grandfather would have chosen without hesitation. They held their color. They would hold it for years. The Durham development had closed in early November. $11 million in projected value over a 3-year build-out. His firm now employed 16 people full-time, including 4 young men from the neighborhood mentorship program who had earned their carpentry certifications and were already doing real work on real buildings in the real world. He funded the program personally. He did not advertise it. Renee came through the screen door, carrying 2 glasses of iced tea, and settled into the chair beside him. She asked about the roofline on the bungalow 2 lots down, whether it was original to the house or a recent replacement. He told her it was a replacement, probably 5 years back, decent quality, but the ridge angle was slightly off from what the original pitch would have been. She understood what that meant now. He had taught her the language, and she had learned it the way she learned everything, attentively, without performing the learning. He had proposed on a Tuesday morning in the same kitchen where Vanessa had once stood with a silk robe and a tilted screen. He had said it plainly, without staging. She had said yes the same way. He heard about Vanessa through Clarice, who received such information through the quiet, efficient network that governed these things among women of her generation, and passed them along without embellishment. The settlement had given Vanessa the equity from the joint household account, just under $40,000 after legal fees. Nothing from the portfolio. Nothing from the properties. Derek Sims had filed for personal bankruptcy a second time, surrendered his mortgage brokerage license after the regulatory complaint was finally adjudicated against him on its merits, and relocated to a smaller city. Vanessa's mother had stopped returning her calls sometime in December. Alexis had ended the friendship on grounds entirely unrelated to Marcus, in the way that old, long-deferred endings finally arrive when there is nothing left to delay them. Vanessa was working now in client services at an insurance company in Gastonia. Marcus noted all of it with the same composure he brought to every verified fact. He registered it. He moved on. He was not free because she was diminished. He was free because he had stopped carrying something that was never his to carry in the first place. Bitterness required ongoing emotional investment in people who no longer deserved it, and he had always been careful about where he put his energy. The evening was warm and unhurried, and settled around them without effort. Renee was still asking questions about roof lines. He was still answering. Below the deck, the Japanese maple he had planted in the spring had taken hold, its leaves holding their deep, particular red in the last of the October light. He was free. He was solvent. He was unbothered. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.